An airstrike hit Mala again this morning at around 11 a.m., striking the capital for the seventh time in the past 2 weeks. The airstrike targeted a residential area at the heart of the city, with 10 already confirmed dead and 30 injured. Hello, I'm here with the hour's news from Tigray TV. I'm Mary Nimano, will be reading the news for you today. Stay tuned. Let's now proceed to the details. Yet another airstrike hit Ma'ala this morning at 11 a.m., killing 10 civilians and injuring 30. Today's airstrike has had the highest number of the casualties in an almost 2-week-long bombardment of the capital. Last week's airstrike had killed 5 civilians and injured several others. For more on today's airstrike, we have invited a guest. For more on today's airstrike, we have invited a guest. Dama Radon from the Bureau of Health is joining us now. Welcome, Dama.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so what's your take on today's airstrike? Can you tell us how many people have been confirmed dead and injured?
Thank you. The fascist regime from Abiy Ahmed is continuing the genocide project in Tigray, and today's airstrike is part of the genocide declared in Tigray. And today there are more than 10 dead bodies from the area, and more than 30 injured by the airstrike. And more than 15 houses are damaged and destroyed. And it's expected that there are many people that are not collected from the under destroyed houses. So the confirmed dead bodies that are admitted to either hospital and Maqla hospital are more than 10, and the injured are more than 30.
The past 2 weeks of airstrikes have added an additional burden on Tigray's already collapsed health system. And how have doctors and hospitals been dealing with these effects?
Yeah, it's known that more than 80% of the health system in Tigray, probably the hospitals and health centers, are damaged and destroyed, and most of the health system, most of the health service delivery is so far is not functioning, because the medicines and drugs and supplies are looted, and many health professionals are killed. And this ongoing airstrike will add burdens on the health system, because we don't have any drugs to treat the patients and the injured people, and we don't have any vital drugs and supplies that are critical to the patients to salvage. So I think the regime is making the genocide project in all sides. The region is encircled 360. So this will be another burden that is added to our system.
Of course. And if I may ask, what type of long-term psychological impact we expect these airstrikes can have on residents of Mala, especially children?
Yeah, children are now under pressure, because they are developing psychiatric and psychological problems, or they are under depression, because when they hear any sound rather than the airstrike, even bajaj and cars or any other sound, they are crying, they are manifesting like depression. So I think this will create on the people of Tigray, and especially on the children, long-term psychological problems. So we have to advise to our children not to go out and not to see such strikes, and we have to advise them to keep in their home.
Okay, thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Earlier today, our reporters were at a hospital to visit some of the victims and doctors. The doctor said that this attack, targeting a residential area in Mala, had been the worst of its kind so far, straining an already collapsed health system. Abil Zagabo has more.
Airstrikes hit Mekelle, Tigray's capital, for 7th time today, killing at least 10 civilians and injuring several others. The attack happened on residential area 11 in the morning. Kibrom Gertlase is a special surgeon at Idar Referral Hospital. He said that today's airstrike had been the worst of its kind since Ethiopian forces had started to bombard the capital last week.
Abiy Ahmed administration has been bombarding Mekelle for the last more than 1 week. And this is a continuation of what he has been doing for the last 1 year. They have been targeting us, they have been targeting with artillery shelling, air bombardment last year, just November. Now again, after the liberation of Tigray, after the forces have advanced deep into the central part of the country, he is targeting civilians in their house, in their residential areas.
He also told us the impact of the siege on Idar Referral Hospital, the largest hospital in Tigray.
We have been under siege for the last 4 months. There is no banking system, there is no electricity, there is no telecommunication and internet. And the people were starving. Children were dying due to starvation, severe malnutrition. And we were expecting the international community to help us to airdrop some food items and drugs. Rather than helping us, they are simply watching when the people is bombarded and being killed. The siege is also a continuation of the genocide because people are dying due to starvation and lack of medicine. Yesterday we have announced that there is no dialysis, there is nothing that we can dialyse a patient. So acute kidney injury patients as well as chronic patients that have been with us, we were following them for years on dialysis. They were waiting for transplant. Now they are sentenced to die because there is nothing every day. The world, they didn't do any tangential action, nothing. Their word is always, they are deeply concerned, they are gravely concerned, but deep concern as well as grave concern, they don't become food, medicine, or they can't stop bombardment. So we need action, timely action to stop this.
The Ethiopian government had started to bombard Tigray's capital on October 18, so far killing 14 civilians, including children, and destroying civilian and public property.
Today's airstrikes is one of the many in Tigray capital. Just last week, 5 airstrikes attacked Mekelle, killing and injuring civilians, and destroying public as well as private properties. Here's a short recap of the airstrikes in Mekelle so far and the devastations they've brought about. On Tuesday, Ethiopian forces had conducted an airstrike in the outskirts of Mekelle, just 7 kilometers from the capital, in a place called Arato. Ethiopian communications had said that its air force had successfully targeted a training camp in the outskirts of Mekelle. However, our reporters were able to confirm that the explosive had landed in a farmland in the outskirts of Mekelle, and with 2 out of 3 failing to detonate, avoiding what might have been a devastating incident. Reporter Haile Goro has more on this.
Berhara and his son, Gabramadin, were collecting harvest when the Ethiopian Air Forces dropped a bomb on their farm at around 11:70 Tuesday morning.
We first saw aircraft in the sky. Then another fighter jet came side by side and threw 3 bombs on the farm. 2 had failed to detonate. We were just here harvesting our crops when this happened. There were 3 other children helping us. They ran when they heard the blast. They burned our crops in November. They want to do the same now. No reason for Abiy Ahmed to bomb here. There is no war front where we are. The jet came at around 11:30 in the morning and threw explosives on our farm. We don't know why this happened, but we are not soldiers. We are farmers. Abiy Ahmed is trying to compensate battlefield by killing civilians.
The girl is a Berhes never. She says the airstrikes happened when they were collecting their crops.
I am sad. How can they attack civilians like this? We are rushing to harvest our crops in time and feed our children are suffering due to hunger.
The United States and the United Nations have released assessments condemning latest airstrikes targeting the capital and other towns and cities across Tigray. The airstrikes have so far killed 5 civilians and injured several others.
Last weekend, another airstrike took place in Maitsauri around the Mbamadre, injuring 3 civilians. Farmers had also lost livestock and their crops burned. Aragawi has more.
On October 24, 2021, Ethiopia's Air Force conducted an airstrike on a farmland in Maitsabri, injuring 3 civilians and killing livestock and destroyed crops. Mengistu Tigray is just one of the many civilians displaced from West Tigray, where Ethiopian forces led by Amhara militia are committing ethnic cleansing, so far displacing over 1 million people. But Mengistu says trouble has followed him and his family.
I am a farmer. I used to live in Humora. My wife and children lived here. My name is Mengistu Tigray. All of our belongings were looted in Humora, and now the Ethiopian government has followed us here. Yesterday's airstrike killed 4 of my livestock and destroyed my crops. My daughter was only saved because she was able to run away. This government is merciless. It will not leave us be. It is bombing us now and is going to bomb us tomorrow. Yesterday, God gave us mercy and saved our lives.
Since the start of October, the Ethiopian government had started what it dubbed a final offensive on Tigray's armed forces, starting an offensive on all fronts. Since October 18, Ethiopia's air forces started to attack towns across Tigray and have bombed the capital of Tigray, Mekelle. On October 24, Ethiopian forces attacked twice, once in Adwa and once in Maitsabri.
I was outside of my house when I heard a sound from the sky. I went outside to see if it was a civilian or a military aircraft. If it was a civilian or military aircraft, that is when a bomb fell on my farm. I have a minor injury from the explosion.
I am Daikan Yirga. I serve at the Church of Saint Abuna Aragawi. We were at home. We have heard bombs before, but we have never seen them. But yesterday, we experienced it firsthand. The aircraft dropped bombs and burned our crops and livestock. We were in a complete darkness yesterday. 3 bombs were dropped in our area. 5 bombs were dropped in total. 3 of them fell here. My left hand was injured, but no one else was injured. Only crops were burned. The livestock are safe, but down there, livestock were also killed.
Goitom Hidogo is also an ADP from Western Tigray. He had this to say about the airstrikes.
My name is Goitom Hidogo. I am displaced from Humora. I am sheltering here at my sister's house. As a matter of accident, yesterday was a holiday, Saint Abuna Aragawi, and many people were here to celebrate. Though the target was not accurate as it was intended, more than 5 bombs were dropped here, and the victims were only livestock and crops. Dropping bombs on civilians and innocent farmers and their crops is awful. It's difficult to imagine that people would do this.
Out of over 8 airstrikes conducted since last week, at least 3 have landed on farmlands, killing livestock and burning crops in Tigray.
President Debretsion Gabramikael made a statement yesterday addressing the residents of Desse and Kombolcha and the Ethiopian public in general. The president advised the town's residents to stay indoors and also work with Tigrayan armed forces to protect private and public properties. The president also called on members of Ethiopian forces, including their commanding officers, to hand themselves to Tigrayan forces. The president also stated that the government's concerns regarding the underage soldiers being forced into the battlefield by the Ethiopian forces. Reporter Haile Gabru has more on this.
President Debretsion, in an address to the residents of Desse and Kombolcha, asked that they cooperate to safeguard public infrastructure and private property as Tigray's armed forces draw closer. The president said that false propaganda was being spread about Tigray's forces to draw animosity between the people of Tigray and Amhara.
We ask that the people not to be disturbed and leave their homes. We ask that they not put themselves through more trouble. Tigray's forces are fighting against an enemy who raped their mothers, massacred civilians, committed ethnic cleansing, looted and destroyed property, and invited a hostile foreign army. Our forces are not fighting because they have been fed propaganda, nor are they fighting for the sake of salary, but because they have seen the atrocities on the ground. Tigray forces know who they should target. They could never consider any people as their enemy. Some are intimidating the people of Amhara, saying that our forces consider the people to be an enemy, but this is false. This type of propaganda is being spewed by people that hope to see bloodshed between the people of Tigray and Amhara. We are working to ensure that Abiy Ahmed and his allies held accountable for the crimes they committed in Tigray. So, we ask that the residents of Dasi and Kombolcha work with our forces and protect their property and infrastructure.
The president also called on Ethiopian forces and their allies to hand themselves over to Tigray's armed forces.
You are dying for no reason. What are you dying for? This war is not a matter of survival for you, but rather for Abiy Ahmed's regime and his allies. Though it's late, you still have time to make this decision and hand yourself over to Tigray's armed forces.
Dr. Debrecen also called on the Ethiopian nations, nationalities, and peoples to do their part to ensure that more underage soldiers are not sent into the battlefield.
የትግራይ ሰራዊት ኢህአዴግ ሰራዊት ሲባል እንደነበረው ብሶት የወለደው ሰራዊት ነው። ልጆቻችሁ በማይሆን ጦርነት ከታቸዋል።
The people of Tigray are fighting to end a genocide waged against them. Political differences can be solved through political dialogue. This has always been our belief. This conflict was caused because the Ethiopian constitution and multinational federalism was violated. Don't send your children to this unjust war. It's swallowing your children. Say enough is enough to Abiy Ahmed and govern yourselves.
President Debrecen also expressed his government's readiness for a cessation of hostilities and a start to a negotiation process for a transitional process in the country.
The Ethiopian government has discontinued all the basic services in Tigray, discontinuing banks and blocking aid as well as medical supplies coming into Tigray. Now, Eider Comprehensive Specialized Hospital has announced that it has been 3 days since it was forced to discontinue health care services to patients suffering from kidney failure, leaving over 32 kidney patients in urgent need and helpless. Reporter Aurhagara Sensei has more on this.
Eider Referral Hospital is the only hospital in Tigray that provides dialysis to kidney patients, providing dialysis to 120 kidney patients on average annually for the past 7 years. However, its capacity has significantly declined since the start of the war in November last year, which has resulted in severe shortage of medical supplies. 2 months ago, it stopped admitting kidney patients for dialysis due to shortage of catheter, a basic equipment to initiate the dialysis process. Dr. Maskalu Kidu, internist and nephrologist at Eider Hospital, expresses her despair that the hospital has been forced to discontinue providing services to its patients.
Now we are in absolute trouble, so we have completely shut down this service. So previously we were providing we have more than 12 admissions, so weekly over 40-50 patients were getting these services. But now we are completely out of service. We have shut down this service because of lack of these dialysis materials. And initially we have lost this central line catheter for initiating this procedure. So we have finished this material before 2 months. So because of lack of this material, we have lost more than 25 patients.
Dr. Maskalu also explained that the hospital has been providing dialysis to 32 kidney patients over the last 2 months, but has now discontinued giving dialysis as it has completely run out of necessary medical equipment.
We have more than 32 patients actively getting this service. Most of them getting this service twice weekly. So we have many patients needing this service. Even new patients. Because of the war. In our region.
Mr. Musa Tesfai, Chief Administrative and Business Development Director of Eider Hospital, says this is the first time the hospital has discontinued dialysis service.
Extremely sad to inform our patients and to the world that in the history of our hospital, for the first time, we have entirely closed the dialysis center.
Mr. Musa adds the dialysis center is the only one of its kind in Tigray, providing care for hundreds across the state depending on its services. But that the hospital has now been forced to stop its service due to the siege is very disappointing.
And this dialysis center is the only center that's found in the entire region. Patients from not only from Tigray region but from neighboring Amhara region, Afar, and the refugees of Eritreans would come to our hospital and get medical care.
Doctors and medical staff members at Eider Hospital called the international community to intervene before it is too late.
Completely, we have exhausted all possible solutions here, but we got none. So the only option we have, or the only solution we are hoping, is that the international community to help us to save lives.
On behalf of the patients, on behalf of our hospital, I would strongly ask for the international community to intervene, and we're only asking to save lives.
Data from the University Hospital indicated that over 25 kidney patients have died in the past 2 months alone.
And with that, we're going to wrap up our news for the hour. I'm Marin from Tigray. Thank you for tuning into Tigray TV.